Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. Thanks for being here with us. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. It's wonderful to get to spend a Friday afternoon, evening, in some places a Saturday morning. If you're on the other side of the date line, a happy Saturday morning to you. And we've got a really fun 2 hours. We're going to spend our 2 hours with Tim Staples, but we're going to do Internet Open Forum, and we're going to do our very best to get staff members from Catholic Answers to come here and ask their questions, because it's always fun when the staff gets a chance to ask their questions. And we like to share the staff with you because.
But the problem is they're too smart.
Oh, yeah, well, that's...
They ask me hard questions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like when your kids are on, though.
They kill me.
Yeah. Tim, thanks for being here and doing this with us.
Great to be with you, brother.
Author of Behold Your Mother, A Biblical and Historical Defense of the Marian Doctrines, but also the author, I think before too long, of Behold the Lamb of God.
Yeah, well, that is I'm working on the CASA course right now on the Eucharist. It got a little bit preempted.
Do they do enough? Did they have you doing enough?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here.
I kind of put that back on the shelf, but they're really dovetailing because they're both the Eucharist.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah.
But the CASA course is a little different animal, so hoping the CASA course to come out first.
Why don't they just record just put whatever you say on the CASA course, just put that into like one of those, typing things,
right?
And then you got yourself a book. There's
well,
the book.
Actually, it's pretty close to that because the study guide for the CASA course is pretty close to the script. Yeah. It's not the script, but it's pretty close to it.
I have to remember not to say the number. Darren has put it on the sheet here in front of me. Don't say the number because we're taking all our questions from the internet. Or if we can entice them to come in, the staff here, who it's always fun to get to visit with the staff on the air.
It's funny, too, because, your well-known senility,
I don't like to talk about that.
Is the impetus for the font being about 700 here. Don't say the number.
I know they make it giant because they know he'll say the number. Oh, he'll definitely say the number. Yes. Make it giant. All right. Well, you want to do some questions from the internet?
Let's do it, man.
And they come to us from all different ways. I mean, the internet has a lot of stuff now. Tweeting, Facebook, YouTube, the email. All that.
And we're actually allowed to be on some of them, too, aren't we?
Yeah, well, every now and then they do. You're right. Like Twitter might discourage some of the things we say, but we don't get discouraged.
Yes.
All right, Melissa, we're going to do the first question comes from Melissa.
Yes.
If a person entered into an invalid marriage, for example, felt forced, can they subsequently make that marriage valid? For example, by willingly staying, praying for grace, offering the situation to God without doing something like renewing their vows. I assume they cannot just walk up the aisle like newbies anymore.
Yes, that's a great question. And generally speaking, ordinarily speaking, if you have an invalid marriage, it has to be convalidated. Okay. Right? Now, that doesn't mean you have to have a wedding, but it can be done with a priest. But it has to be convalidated because it's invalid. Now, there are other possibilities, things like radical sanation, where you can, in special circumstances, have whatever the impediment was taken care of. And so in a radical sanation, that which was invalid is made valid by virtue of the fact that the impediments are removed. So that's a rare situation.
Rare.
It's not used very often.
Uh-huh.
Just ordinarily, you get it convalidated. And because, as a Catholic, we need to understand when you enter into a marriage that is invalid, that is no marriage at all. You are living in objective, grave sin. It's a very serious situation.
Yeah.
In our culture, in our Catholic culture today, it's almost, it's a nice bonus.
Yeah.
Do you want to have it in the church? Well, not really. Maybe later.
Yeah.
And
right.
It's serious business. I think those sorts of attitudes toward the sacrament is just one of many signs that we need the new evangelization.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what John Paul was talking about, how we need to re-evangelize the Western world and really the world.
But there's a lot of people, though, Tim, who I would think in their feelings might feel that their marriage is invalid, but how do they know? Like, well, I did feel forced, maybe by circumstances I felt
Right.
forced, so, but do your feelings matter in that case?
Right.
Or?
No, the church presumes if you were married in the church, even though you may have some misgivings, the church presumes you have a valid sacramental marriage until, well, if you're both baptized. If one's not baptized, we presume a valid marriage until it can be proven otherwise.
Right.
And that's the way you should live in your marriage. You were married validly, quote unquote, right? Externally, the church says this is a valid marriage. And so the real issue doesn't arise until there's a problem in the marriage. Now, could that be part of the problem? Sure.
Yeah.
If a couple reaches a point where they have a real crisis of conscience, I don't think we're validly married. Well, then go talk to your priest.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Right.
And square it away, because the church, is all about wanting you and I to have a right relationship with God and with one another and have peace. So in order to get that peace, talk to your pastor. You can go over things and then get that peace in your conscience.
Thanks, Melissa. I hope that was helpful to you. Raul asks this. Raul says, I am embarrassed to ask this question. Besides the battle from the book of Revelation, where do we get the notion of Satan saying that he will not serve and that he is like God? I have no... Why are you embarrassed to ask that question, Raul?
Yeah, it's a great
You
question.
didn't do it. You're not responsible for what Satan did. Okay, so how do we get that notion?
Yeah, well, it's a very ancient tradition that goes all the way back. Well, let's take them one at a time. First, let's talk about the non serviam.
Okay.
Ancient tradition goes back as far as you want to go. And the reason why is it's actually rooted in sacred scripture. It's found in Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 20. And if you read Jeremiah 2, it's in the voice of the king. The prophet is speaking in the voice of the king of Babylon and the arrogance of the king of Babylon who stands against God, and he's about to get crushed because he's standing against God. So, but in the midst of that communication, and this is the way prophecy works often in the Old Testament, in the midst of that communication, words begin to be spoken that have a polyvalent sense to them. This is more than just the king of Babylon speaking here. This is the voice of Lucifer. And so, and you see this here in Jeremiah chapter 2. And it's verse 20 where the king of Babylon says, non serviam, I will not serve, right? He's fighting against God. But if you read that carefully, you see that this is the voice of Satan. And really that dovetails into the second part of the question, because it says, where does this come from? I will be like God. Well, that is a quote from Isaiah chapter 14. If you look at Isaiah 14, beginning at verse 12, this too is the voice of the king of Babylon. Same dude from Jeremiah chapter 2. But notice this. How you are fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn. How are you cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low? Now, the word day star in the Latin Vulgate becomes Lucifer, right? So, how are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of dawn? So here, I mean, you see that in the Latin, it's understood this is Satan now speaking, because notice, the words of, or the words are in the voice of the king of Babylon, but notice how it changes to where you're not talking, this isn't the king of Babylon anymore, because it says, how you are fallen from dawn, O day star, son of dawn, how you are cut down to the ground, you are laid, you who laid the nations low. You said in your heart, I will ascend above the stars of God. Right? And by the way, there's an ancient myth that says Lucifer says one day he'll exalt himself above God. Years ago, I was reading the Summa of St. Thomas Aquinas and happened upon Thomas pointing out that's a myth. Lucifer never says he'll exalt himself above God. Not even Lucifer is that stupid, right? As a contingent being, he knows his being is dependent ultimately upon God. To ascend himself above God is a logical contradiction that even a fallen angel can't descend to that depth of stupidity, right? We could do it. No, but it's cool. He doesn't say, I'll ascend to heaven above God, but above the stars of God, referring to the angels that are above him, and you and I. Because in Christ, of course, we are, if you look at Revelation chapter 12, remember Mary's wearing a crown of 12 stars, right? The stars, symbol of the apostles. And Thomas points out that in the incarnation and through the incarnation, Christ, whose human nature, considered in and of itself, is beneath the angels. Remember, he descended in the humiliation of the incarnation and became a little lower than the angels, we see. But as a result of the hypostatic union, human nature is exalted above even the angelic. And through baptism, you and I are exalted above. I was just reading the other day Pope Urban IV, a great document called the Transiturus. It's just a brilliant document from the 15th century, and he talks about how all of us, because of our baptism, are exalted above. It's a papal bull. It's beautiful. Above even the angels. So here's the point. I will ascend above the stars of God. Lucifer couldn't stand anybody being over him, including the seraphim, because he was a cherubim, according to St. Thomas. He couldn't stand that. And he couldn't stand that incarnation idea of human nature being exalted above the angelic. And so here we get a sense here. Notice, I will ascend above the stars of God. I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the mount of the assembly in the far north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. That is the quote that answers your question. I will be like the Most High. But notice, he doesn't say above, he says like. And you hear the same words that he would later tempt Adam and Eve.
You will be like God.
You will be like God. He's offering them something that they've already been gifted. They're creating the image and likeness of God already. But just as Lucifer, who was also created in the image and likeness of God because he's a rational being, but he wanted to ascend himself by his own power, and that's what he tempts Adam and Eve with, right? You can be like God without God. And so when you read through Isaiah 14, beginning at verse 12, you'll see that this is no longer just the king of Babylon. This is Lucifer himself. And we get these insights into non serviam, I will not serve. I will be like the Most High, comes right from sacred scripture.
Raul, thank you very much for that question. We're doing an internet and staff open forum with Tim Staples this hour and next on Catholic Answers Live. We'll take a quick break and be back with more questions for Tim.
Catch Catholic Answers Live anytime at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Check out EWTN's official YouTube channel.
Just follow the link on our homepage at EWTN.com or go to YouTube.com/EWTN.
Watch EWTN's live shows or today's homily from the Daily Mass.
Click the upload button to see our most recent clips.
You can also find all of EWTN YouTube content by clicking the playlist button.
It's all on the official EWTN YouTube channel at YouTube.com/EWTN.
Visit today.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. We're doing an internet and staff open forum with Tim Staples this hour, and joined by one of the most important people here at Catholic Answers, the web manager, Chuck Gallucci. Hi, Chuck.
Hi.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Also, did you know this? Chuck now the father of 4. Is that right, Chuck? 4?
That's right. 4 and under.
God,
He's
4
just,
at 4 and
he's
under.
just trying to pass me.
He's working.
It's all about passing me.
Trying to catch up at least. Man.
Well, by the way, Chuck, now that since I never get to talk to you on the air, great job on the new and improved Catholic Answers Live app.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we had a team of people doing that. I just did our back end here, but yeah,
I don't know
a
what
lot
any
of people
that
involved.
means,
Yeah,
but yes, good. No.
thank you.
All right, Chuck, father of 4 under 4. Go ahead with your question for Tim Staples.
Yes.
Here's my question. I hope I can formulate it. Is there anything wrong with this following logic?
Okay.
Baptism baptizes you. You're baptized into the Catholic Church.
Correct.
The Catholic Church recognizes any Trinitarian form. As long as you use the Trinitarian form, it's valid.
With water.
With water. Part of the form.
Actually, that's the matter.
So Protestants...
Let's get this correct.
Because,
Yeah.
So the Catholic Church recognizes Protestant baptisms.
Correct.
Therefore, Protestants are Catholic.
Well, no, they're not in full communion, but you could argue that if you have a Protestant baby baptized, he's as Catholic can be because he has received baptism, and there's no
Same baptism.
There's no impediments whatsoever. But what happens is, Chuck, that once that child grows up, that's when the problems start, because Protestantism is related to the Catholic Church. And by the way, the Lumen Gentium, the dogmatic constitution of the Church, just in a beautiful 3 paragraphs, paragraph 14, 15, and 16, Lumen Gentium lays out beautifully our relationship with those who are atheists, unbelievers, non-Christians, and then Christians and the Orthodox. And it kind of lays out the distinction. And basically, here's the distinction, Chuck. We have the language the council uses is those who are not baptized can be related to the church in various ways.
Okay.
Related through their desire for truth, for example. If they're an atheist, there's a theoretic possibility they can be related to us in a way known to God alone, and so forth. Hindus, Buddhists, Muslims. In fact, Muslims are closer to us than the others that I mentioned because their belief in the one God. And Jews. These are all related to us, or can be, by their desire for truth and by their cooperation with the grace of God given to them right where they are in a manner known to God alone. However, once you get into the baptized, then the church says they are joined to us. Those outside
are related.
Or
can be related.
In some mysterious way. But now, because of baptism, they are truly joined to us. This is why, as far back as the Council of Florence, you have when the Holy Father invited the Patriarch of Constantinople to come to the council. He calls him his brother in Christ, right? Invites his brother in Christ to come to the council, and tremendous things happened. There was actually a reunification for a brief time. Why? How can that be? He's a schismatic, man. Because of our baptism.
Yeah.
They are our brothers in Christ, and so are our Protestant friends. But the church says they are separated brethren. So they're brothers, and they're joined to us in as much as they have that valid baptism. And of course, the Orthodox are even closer because they have 7 sacraments. But they are joined to us, but that joining is an imperfect communion. Why? Because they don't have the fullness of that union that comes through the common profession of faith. You can have the sacrament of baptism, but if you don't have then the sacrament of the Eucharist, your union is less perfect than it would be if you had the Eucharist. If you had the common profession of faith, your union would be full, but it's not. So does that make sense?
It does.
So the Protestants are joined to us. But what's really interesting to get at your question, Chuck, is that baby, let's say you have a Lutheran who believes in infant baptism and he's baptized, that baby doesn't have any impediment whatsoever. So he is, in that sense, fully Catholic. He's as Catholic. If he dies in that state, he's going straight to heaven, no purgatory time, right? Because he's Catholic in that sense. But when he gets older and learns, oh, the papacy, that's bogus.
That
guess
creates
what
a
happens?
kind of impediment then.
It creates a imperfection in that joining. But go ahead.
But they're still baptized and therefore part of the one Catholic Church.
Yes.
And so the question is, you have many Catholics, professed Catholics who, for example, maybe deny the real presence.
Yes.
I mean, it's
actually becoming too common.
Yeah,
Right.
it's very
Yes.
common.
Yes.
So how are those Catholics more Catholic than, say, a Protestant who's baptized into the Catholic Church and maybe
That's right.
maybe say is indifferent? Maybe says, well, maybe it is really Jesus.
They're not.
He's
the Protestant, quote unquote, is more Catholic than the Catholic.
Right.
And that's a fact. In fact, I would refer you back to that same 3 paragraphs. In particular, zero in on paragraph 14, because the fathers at Vatican Council II talk about how that there are many who are in the church, and it uses the phrase in body, but not in spirit.
Yeah.
Those who do not profess the complete profession of faith that we must. And remember, in order to receive a sacrament validly, you have to say, I believe all the Catholic Church teaches to be revealed by God. If you can't say that, you can't receive at least you can't licitly receive a sacrament. All right, because you're in sin. You're not in full communion with the church. So the person who denies the real presence is not in full communion with the Catholic Church, should not be receiving the Eucharist. In fact, when he does, objectively, he's committing sacrilege.
Wow.
Whereas, where you have that baby that's a Protestant, that baby is on his way to heaven. That Catholic is on his way to hell, objectively speaking. And by the way, that's not Tim Staples speaking. That's what paragraph 14 of Lumen Gentium, it says. Not only that Catholic who is in the church in body but not in spirit, not only will he not, in fact it says, not only can he not go to heaven, but he will receive the harsher judgment. Why? Luke chapter 12, verse 48, to whom much is given, much is required. So the Protestant's in a lot better shape than that Catholic.
Can I ask a follow-up?
You already asked a follow-up, Chuck.
Right,
yes, but now you can ask a follow-up to the follow-up.
Okay,
you think I wasn't paying attention,
This
Chuck?
is a follow-up to follow-up. This is maybe a question more of your opinion on approach.
Okay.
So if it's true that Protestants are baptized into the Catholic Church, and it's not false to say that they are therefore Catholic.
It's an imperfect communion. The reason why we don't say they are Catholic is because they cannot make that profession of faith.
Okay, that was my follow-up. Like, how come I never hear it phrased that way? I'm wondering, like, is the reason we don't? If I had a Protestant friend, is the reason I wouldn't say that to him? Well, technically, bud, you're Catholic. Is it because it's rude, or because I could see if there's good rapport and we're both of good will and we have a great friendship and banter, I could say that to him and it would be true, and I could imagine that planting a seed or getting the gears turning.
It can also come across.
Is it maybe generally a bad approach?
Yeah, it is, and this is, I think, part and parcel of what St. Ignatius of Loyola says, thinking with the mind of Christ, thinking with the mind of the church. Listen to the language that the church uses and use that language, because, even though technically you're right, it's an imperfect communion, but in as much as they have scripture, baptism, the grace that they have ultimately comes through the Catholic Church. That is a fact. That's a dogma of our faith. It's an infallible teaching of the church that there's no salvation apart from the Catholic Church. Everybody in heaven, Chuck, is Catholic, right? Some of them are going to find out in purgatory that they're Catholic, but that the bottom line. But I believe the important point here is because there is not a full communion, you don't want to fall into a sort of false Irenicism, right? That says, they're
that?
Catholic. Peace where there is no peace.
Okay.
right?
That's not Chuck. Chuck is not falling into peace with her.
Well, but inadvertently, really unwittingly, you can do that, because if you decide, I'm going to declare they're Catholic already, when the church says, oh, no, they're not.
Oh, yeah, I see.
That's saying there's a union that really doesn't exist, because in order for them to be fully Catholic, they have to make that profession of faith and say, I believe all that the Catholic Church teaches is revealed by God. Otherwise, we can't give that title of Catholic to them.
Okay, Chuck?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for everything you do
Take care,
here, Chuck. Chuck Galucci, web manager, now father of 4 under 4. I didn't realize that. Wow. That's why he looks so tired.
That's
I thought it was all the web work. Married and happy, he said.
And tired and happy.
Oh, tired and happy too. Yeah, right. Thanks, Chuck. Tim Staples is our guest. We're taking questions from the internet and from the staff here at Catholic Answers. We will continue to do that right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Call us now with your question on Catholic Answers Live.
According to divine command, we should give God worship, but how do we know if we're doing it right? Is worship a form of self-help to make me feel better, a form of social activism, or even a commodity? Or is it something that transcends all of those? In Real Religion, How to Avoid False Faith and Worship God in Spirit and Truth, Father Jeff Kirby cuts through the misguided modern notions about God and religion and takes you back to the foundation for true worship, God's revelation about himself. From his first contact with his chosen people to the culmination of his revelation in Jesus Christ, God shows us what religion is supposed to be like and how to make the practice of it a lifelong virtue in our lives. Order your copy of Real Religion by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Here's a question. Is it really possible to be friends with someone who died 2,000 years ago? Maybe the problem is that we've grown way too comfortable with the story of Jesus. Nice man, right? Taught us to love one another, said not to judge people. We celebrate his birthday every year. It's time to put away this small, safe version of Jesus, says Cy Kellett. Nobody that bland could have transformed the world. In A Teacher of Strange Things, Cy presents Jesus Christ undiluted by sentiment, with all his radical words and deeds uncensored. Do you know someone, your son or daughter perhaps, or maybe your mom or dad, who needs the friendship of Jesus Christ? Do you? Order your copy of A Teacher of Strange Things by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Tim Staples is our guest. That's nice that Chuck came in. I think people don't realize sometimes the quality of people that we work with, really high quality people, and Chuck is among them. And we'll be hearing from more of the staff as we go through these 2 hours, because we're taking our questions from the internet and from the staff here at Catholic Answers, who have, am I supposed to reveal this? I don't know, who've been promised donuts if they come in and ask questions.
But they have to save some for me.
Yeah, do not go through all of those donuts. Okay, so here's one from the internet for you. This comes from Ron, who asks, how is Ur called Ur of the Chaldeans in Genesis when that culture didn't appear until centuries later? Way to go, Ron.
I tell you, we've got some sharp listeners.
Yeah.
You're right. It's a great question, because Chaldean culture is generally understood to have come to be in about the 9th century BC. So this is centuries later from, what we're talking about here, 1800, 1900 BC. So what's going on? Well, this is an example of why. This is one among many, many reasons why we know that the Old Testament was written and then redacted over a period of roughly 1,500 years. It wasn't all written by Moses. in the sense that he penned the entire. I mean, my goodness, if you look at Deuteronomy, the end of the thing, you at least got to give us this, that Joshua had, or somebody wrote that.
Because Moses did not write it
he
after.
Didn't write about his own death afterward. But anyway, the point is, as Cardinal Ratzinger, I think, beautifully lays out in his book In the Beginning, I've recommended that so many times. It's a beautiful book, that the Torah is redacted over a period of about 1,000 years. Or more than 1,000 years. It's fine. No, it would be right about 1,000 years that the Torah was redacted, because the Torah, that is the first 5 books, was completed about the 5th century BC. So those books would be about 1,000 years. But other parts of the Old Testament were still being written even after that. So the bottom line is, the reason why it's called Ur the Chaldees is because when the final redactor is putting, Genesis together.
I see. Yeah,
that's the name of the culture
that's living
out
there.
Of which Abraham would have come, and that is the culture that's living there then. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you and I are writing a paper today about what's going on in the Middle East. We don't use the title of the countries as they were 1,000 years ago.
Right. You don't say like the Transjordan section of the Ottoman Empire. You just say Jordan.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Thanks, Ron. That's a good one. That was a really good one.
Really good.
This comes from Rome. The person's name is Rome. Why are angels illustrated using human images with wings, where the Bible paints these angels having very weird features?
Well, actually, Rome, the Bible presents angels in various ways. Sometimes they appear looking like men, like in Genesis chapter 18, the famous 3 visitors to Abraham.
Right.
They simply look like men. But you also have Isaiah chapter 6, the first 4 verses, where they do have wings, although they have 3 sets of wings. That would have looked a little funky, 3 sets of wings, not just the 2. And so, angels, we have to remember, are pure spirits. It's hard for us to even fathom. In fact, we can't fathom what that is. We don't know what that is. What is pure spirit? It has no material being. And so, all we can really say is what it's not. It doesn't have, because we don't know what pure spirit is. The only way you can know pure spirit is through a intuited intellectual comprehension. And by the way, that's what the beatific vision will be, is a directly intuited intellectual comprehension of God. And as a result of that, God as he is, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, though we won't fully comprehend him, because only God can fully comprehend God, we'll comprehend him in accordance with the gift of grace we are given in this life and our cooperation with that grace at the point of our death. This is why the Blessed Virgin Mary comprehends God greater than all the angels and saints combined, because she had both the greatest gifts and the greatest of cooperation. Hence, she knows God, comprehends God in a fuller way than all other created beings combined. And so, but the same thing applies to angels, because it's in the comprehension of God that we will then be able to comprehend the angels, and we'll be able to comprehend each other. Because you are a mystery you're a mystery to me, Si, but you know what? In heaven, we will know even as we are known. We are really going to be close, Si, when we get to heaven.
I know.
That's why, you should love one another now, this side of the veil, because you're really going to live with them forever.
But not as they are now. That's helpful to think they too will be transformed. So if you had to live with me for eternity, as I am now, that would be awful.
No, because we'd kill each other over and over and over.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But, anyway, just to put a bow on the question, I said all that to say this. Angels have to, like God, when he appears, he has to condescend, to use Chrysostom's word, St. John Chrysostom. He has to condescend, to take a form. The Word was made flesh, right? Well, angels are the same way. They have to appear in ways to where you and I can see them, and God allows them to do that. But that's not who they are in their essence, right? These are appearances. And there's also, I love the way Thomas Aquinas and others speculate as to Thomas says they compress the air, Okay, great, Thomas. That, they didn't have.
Oh, is that what yeah, that's how they appeared.
How they appear, yeah. We don't know.
We don't know how they do it.
Yeah, we don't know. And so the wings, yes, it has a root in sacred scripture. It develops over centuries in our tradition. But you also notice in our iconography, angels are not always the same. You have the little cherub fellas.
Right.
Botticelli loves those little, little fat little baby angels. But you also have Michael, who is
going to war
with the sword. I mean, I love our iconography when it comes to angels, because you get, the difference between Saint George and he's a saint. Not an angel, but St. Michael versus the others is quite a gulf. But really, doesn't that communicate the wide range of ministries of the angels?
Okay, so I'm going to actually follow up with my own question, since we're doing staff questions, because I asked Father Hugh one time this is basically my question, and I know things by seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling. Yes. Like that's how I have these perceptions come in, and then I have ask questions about those, and I process the question. That's how I know things. Okay, so I don't understand how an angel who can't see, hear, taste, touch, or smell can know anything. So I asked him to explain that to me. He explained it beautifully. I did not understand any of it. I still don't know how does an angel.
Okay, well, let me take a shot.
Okay, yeah. All
right. I think the key is first to understand what you just defined as the way we come to know is very incomplete, right? Because we have a spiritual nature as well as a material nature. You have to make the distinction between us and German Shepherds. German Shepherds, right, dogs, cats, birds, and bats, only know the material reality before them. But because we have a spiritual nature, we have a power of the soul called the power of abstraction. When I look at you, different than a German Shepherd, he just sees, alpha male.
Right. Boy, does he, yes.
Right. But I abstract the form, your spiritual nature, the form of manness.
Right.
And I can know your spiritual component in as much as you are risible, right? You can laugh, you have an intellect and a will, a spiritual nature. I can know that about you.
Right.
So I know much more about the created order than just what I see, taste, and that applies not only to you, but all things, because everything has a form. Yes. Everything has a nature.
Right.
And so I'm able to abstract that spiritual component that is the thing that I am looking at. Okay, so with angels now, they simply think of them as having that spiritual component alone.
Yes.
They know the world of the forms like you and I know right?
Yeah.
They know the form of that as well as the form of this. They actually know this better than we do. They know what this thing is because they know it inside and out, because they know the form of the thing. They know you as well. See, this is why Lucifer has insights into you that we don't, because he knows you.
Even though he uses those to his advantage.
He does, because he sees inside. Now, he doesn't have access to your intellect and will, but he does to your imagination.
Yeah.
He knows your tendencies and so forth. He knows you in a way better than your wife knows you, right? He knows you better. So all I'm saying is, with the angels then, they don't need eyeballs to be able to see. They comprehend the forms. They comprehend the real essence of things that gives them much better vision, if you will, because it's a vision. You've heard me say this before, Cy, when we talk about the beatific vision. It's analogous to, the physics student who is struggling with a problem and he can't get it, and then he goes, I see.
Yes.
It's not that He
doesn't
not use
see.
That's
Right,
right.
right.
His
Seeing is a
eyeballs
metaphor.
are not even involved. It
Yeah.
was an intellectual comprehension, right? He could, with his eyeballs, look at the problem all day long, and all it's just a bunch of stuff
Right.
down there. But it's the spiritual comprehension that is the real essence of knowledge.
Yes.
That's what knowledge is. And, that's kind of the best we can do, but it kind of gets you to that, right up to the horse being led right up to the trough there.
Yeah, it's like we can know it,
you can't quite grasp it completely.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah,
but at
you can't
least
quite
you can
grasp it.
see how the angels comprehend everything all at once because of their spiritual natures, to where they know this thing better than I do.
Yeah.
Right? That's the best we can do.
Thanks, Tim.
Does that help at all?
It does, yeah. But it particularly helps when you say we can get right up to the edge, but we can't fully grasp it, because I think that's where I am.
Yes.
I don't know what it is because I know what it is for the physics problem. The senses are involved, and then the spirit gets involved following the input to the senses. Well, there's no input to the senses
because they don't need it.
That's the part that is hard.
But see, that's the advantage of the angels, because you and I need the senses, and that's why we learn discursively, because we have to go from A to B to C. They see all things at once and comprehend. It's right from the get-go, because all that we're talking about, reading and trying to figure it out, those are all limitations that they don't have.
Yeah, they go right past that part, right to comprehension.
That's right.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll be right back with more Open Forum with Tim Staples.
This is Archbishop Paul Coakley of the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Do you love praying for people? Have you ever wanted to use your gift of prayer to share Jesus with others and build up the body of Christ? Start a public prayer station with St. Paul Street Evangelization. Listen to people's needs, pray with them, or invite them to meet you at church. St. Paul Street Evangelization can help you get started. Find out how at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
He was a Jesuit, a cardinal, and a doctor of the Church.
Matthew Bunson and the Doctors of the Church.
St. Robert Bellarmine is honored for his immense contributions to theology, including helping to draft 2 important catechisms that defended church teachings during the Protestant Revolt. Pope Clement VIII named Bellarmine a cardinal because, as the Pope put it, Bellarmine had not his equal for learning.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. We're doing a fun open forum for this Friday. Tim Staples here with us, and we're sharing questions that we receive via the internet, a usual internet open forum, but also staff members coming in to ask their question. And I even got in on that. I got to ask my question, and I'm very grateful for your answer, Tim. Now we have Heavy Metal Thomas here to ask a question. Heavy Metal Thomas, why are you called Heavy Metal Thomas?
More or less because that's kind of the reason I was hired, because my music taste is very similar to that of our Chief Operating Officer, John Sorensen's.
There you have insight into the real hiring practices.
There
were other
Now,
reasons.
you did work here as an intern for a long time before
indeed.
getting hired.
Yes.
But you two bonded over heavy metal.
Correct.
And now you are a social media specialist here at Catholic Answers.
Also correct.
Which you're very, very good at.
He really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's
Which
a pretty funny guy, too.
Yeah. And it's funny because people like Tim and I, we what you do is in an area that we don't understand at all. So we're like, it's like magic. Is he doing magic? Social media is amazing to us. So good for you, Thomas. All right, not social media, Heavy Metal Thomas.
Either one works.
Go ahead with your question.
It's funny that you say I'm good at my job, because I'm actually going to ask Tim to do it for me. I posted an article today that we ran, and someone asked a follow-up question, and I'm not entirely sure how to respond. So,
so you're getting Tim to do your job right now.
There you go.
Precisely.
Good job, Heavy Metal Thomas.
Thanks for hyping
But
me up
actually,
first.
it's part of my job to do part of his job.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Well, that's true for all of us. People should know that. Like, if there's an apologetics question that we don't know the answer to, anybody, we can ask Tim, and he'll help us through it.
That's it.
And we love him for it.
Yes,
so I'll just give him the question, because it's pretty straightforward. If Jesus ascended with a glorified body, does this mean that God, the second person of the Trinity, is both material and immaterial permanently?
Excellent question. And the answer is yes. And that is a very important dogma of the faith, that in the incarnation, what we have, my rock and roll friend, is a substantial union of the human nature, divine nature, in the one divine person. Because it's a substantial union, it is permanent. God was all in when it came to the incarnation, because now when you talk about what does substance, substantial being, what does that mean? The substance is the thing itself. Like when we talk about this crucifix, the substance is the totality of the thing. So when you say Jesus in heaven for all eternity, his substance is to be God-man. Wow. That means there's no going back, because he is all in. It would, in fact, it would be contrary to God's wisdom, therefore contrary to God's nature, to renege on that.
Yeah, you can't go back on it.
He can't go back on that substantial union. Isn't that cool?
That's very cool.
You know, and really, that's love. You know,
yeah, why do that other
is
than
love.
for love of us? Yeah.
God committed himself in a way that no human mind could ever have fathomed. In fact, this is absurd. What does St. Paul say? It's a stumbling block to the Jews and foolishness to the Greeks. The whole idea of God becoming man. We had a rabbi in this building a couple of times. I invited a local rabbi who, by the way, just died about a year ago. He was a good man. Rabbi Rosenthal. God bless him. But we talked about that. And that was basically his response. It was just, no, that's crazy. God can't become man. But we pressed him on it. I think it was Jimmy pressed him on it and said, are you saying God can't? And the rabbi paused and he said, well, I suppose I can't say that he can't, but he wouldn't. That is absurd. And we were watching a Jew, a rabbi, confirm what St. Paul said. Right. It's a stumbling block to the Jews and it's foolishness to the Greeks, but for us it is the love of God. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay his life down for his friends. Well, let's back it up. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Even the incarnation itself, as St. Irenaeus said, you know, he merited infinitely. He could have saved an infinite number of worlds just in the incarnation. That's the level of commitment in God becoming man. Anyway, thanks for asking that question, because it's a good one.
What do you think, Heavy Metal Thomas?
That's spectacular. I'll try to condense that down into a social media comment. But yeah,
right. Well, you can by just saying yes. Like the answer to the question is yes.
I could, absolutely. And then I'd be right back in here for the inevitable. Clear that up a bit more, please.
Well, point him to this.
Yeah.
Point him to this. Yeah.
I'll do that.
Thank you, Heavy Metal Thomas. Another question for Tim from the internet. This one comes from Cindy, who asks, if you need to be in a state of grace to receive communion, but assuming that you're in a state of grace is a mortal sin, how can we receive?
Boy, that's a great question. There's a flaw in your reasoning, though, because the key is your usage of the term assume, to assume. What the church teaches is it would be presumptuous for us to declare, a la the Protestant, I am saved. I know if I die right now, I am going to heaven. That is to declare with metaphysical certainty that you are saved. But even there, the church is not absolute, because the Council of Trent, Session 6 on justification says, apart from a private revelation. So someone can have a private revelation, and you can probably think of some who did. How about
those three children from Fatima?
That's right, the three children from Fatima, Lucia, Jacinta, and what's the other one? Whatever the third one was.
Wait, now, okay, I'm going to have to think of it. Go ahead, finish your answer, and I'll think about it.
Lucia, Jacinta, and?
It's the boy.
Yes, what's his name? I can picture him, but I can't think of his name. Anyway. But so the key here is, yes, it would be presumption, and that would be a sin. In fact, that's a very dangerous sin, to presume upon God. right? It's the defect of hope, right? We can presume is, one extreme where we fall short of the virtue of hope. And then despair is the other extreme, right? We maintain the middle there, all right? But there is, and here's the key to answering your question. Great questions, by the way. And we make the distinction between metaphysical certainty, that's what would be presumptuous, apart from that private revelation, as I said. But we have to have a level, what we call moral certainty, that we're in a state of grace before we can receive communion, right? So it's not a sin to say, I believe I am in a state of grace, therefore I can receive communion. Because that's not metaphysical certainty. That's not an absolute certainty. You're not declaring yourself to be God here. And if you want a biblical text that really lays this out beautifully, go to 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 3 through 6, where St. Paul says concerning the Corinthians, he says, "Brethren, it is a very small matter for me to be judged by you or any man's judgment." He says, I don't even judge my own self. He says, I have nothing on my conscience, but I am not thereby justified. Therefore judge not until such time when the Lord comes, and then shall the hidden motives of the heart be manifest, and then shall each man have his reward from God. So notice, Paul says, I can't judge my own soul as being worthy of heaven. That is where the sin would be involved. If I say, oh yeah, man, apart from that private revelation.
Yes.
Right? If I say, yes, I know. St. Joan of Arc famously, are you in a state of grace? I hope so.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Basically,
that's what she said. Yeah.
In essence,
if I am, may God keep me there, and if I'm not, may He bring me there.
That is the most brilliant, totally biblical and Catholic.
Don't get me started on Joan of Arc.
That's right. But that's the key. So it's not wrong to make that a moral judgment. My goodness, if we couldn't do that, we couldn't live, we couldn't function as human beings. If we can't make moral judgments concerning the actions of others and as well ourselves, we couldn't have courts of law. You certainly couldn't be a parent. You got to make judgments constantly, but you make that distinction between moral certainty. You know what? I know you stole that cookie, Luke. Don't look at me
why
like
do you
that.
pick on Luke? You know he's watching.
That's right. I know what you did. But then again, we can't make those absolute declarations. So that's the key.
Thanks, Cindy, very much. Francisco. I'm talking to you,
Francisco. How could I have forgotten?
I know. Well, first of all, I'm amazed that you forget anything, because I sit like the stuff that you remember. It shocks me. Like, there's no way a human being can remember all this, and then you forget Francisco's name.
I'm getting old.
Yeah. Everybody who knows Luke just thinks he's the finest person.
Yes.
He's such a good guy.
I just
Luke.
pick on him.
I know. But he can have go ahead, get a cookie right now. You have my permission, Luke. I know you're watching. Go get a cookie, Luke. Oh, I almost gave out the phone number. It's open forum today. Who we got lined up to ask questions? Andrew coming in to ask a question? Christine coming in to ask a question? Yeah, you're eating a donut, Andrew. You're coming in here to ask. That's what the donuts are for. People who come in and ask
brain
a question.
Brain food.
Yeah, right. And is it going to be a Chaldean Catholic question or a more universal? We don't know. Because he's in a,
maybe it'll be a Spider-Man question.
Yeah, he's wearing the Spider-Man shirt. That's a Chaldean Catholic in a Spider-Man shirt.
Yes.
You're at Catholic Answers when you see that. All right. So the way it works today, we're doing open forum with Tim Staples, and all of our questions are coming from the internet or from our own staff members who have been promised donuts if they come in and ask a question. And I can see through the glass that some of them are eating the donuts. So I know we got more questions coming from staff after this, and we love to put our fellow staff members on the air because they're wonderful people we're very proud to be associated with. I was supposed to do ads this hour and I didn't do them, so let me just tell you right now, Summer Reading Challenge is still on. You can get the whole set of 44 20 Answers books at 70% off right now at shop.catholic.com. The other thing I was supposed to tell you earlier in the show was we've got a free ebook for you right now. And it's the real story of the Crusades and the Inquisition. Get your copy for free at shop.catholic.com. That's in the ebook format. Tim Staples is our guest, and it's always great to have Tim here, but we'd like to introduce you to some of our co-workers here at Catholic Answers, and they'll be in to ask more questions when we come back right after this on Catholic Answers Live. Are you going to have a donut at the break?
I'm
or are you
on
gonna
my
wait
way.
Really? Valerie's watching.
Sorry, honey. Got to do it.
These are Mary's donuts, and they're really good, and we're going to have them. All right, we'll be right back with more Open Forum with Tim Staples. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. A lot of fun here today. All the staff, not all the staff, but a lot of the staff coming by and visiting us because they love us, right, Darren? It could also be the 2 boxes of donuts from Mary's Donuts in El Cajon that are out there. And Darren suggested we work on getting Mary's Donuts to be a sponsor of the show. I believe 1 box of donut a week of donuts from Mary's Donuts would be worth hours of advertising. Don't you think? I think hours of advertising. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Tim Staples is our guest, and it's open forum. We're asking Tim questions from the internet, but interspersed in there, our colleagues from Catholic Answers have been coming in to ask questions. Are you ready to do that again, Tim?
Let's do it.
You're right.
We're having too much fun.
Because the Director of Development, Dave Matheson, is here. And he's a multi-talented person.
He is.
The other day, he led the whole staff. I don't know how you got the job, but you led the staff in a rosary. And I was like, man, David can really lead a rosary. You did a great job.
You know, praying the daily rosary helps.
Yeah,
and,
but you have that voice, too. You have a great voice.
That's it.
And,
thank you.
Yeah,
he's got the radio voice.
He really does. I hate it. Like, he's in development, and I'm like, why don't I have that voice? Like, listen to me. I'm on the radio. Hello. He's like, hello, I'm David Matheson.
I love it.
Hi, I'm Cy. Yeah, right. I hate that David has that voice. But all right, David, go ahead and ask your question of Tim Staples.
Well, thank you, Cy. So, Tim.
Yes.
Often it happens, I don't know how often, but occasionally, from time to time, it happens where 2 bishops will issue what seem to be conflicting opinions on a matter. And it could be any number of things, right? We've seen one recently, but this has happened probably throughout the entire history of the church.
Sure.
My question is, how when you see this, when 2 bishops issue opinions that seem to be opposed to each other, how should your average lay Catholic look at this, make sense of it, and discern how should we feel about this particular matter, whatever it might be?
Yeah, you know what? On one level, our first reaction should be, this is healthy. This is really healthy. And let me give you an example.
Wow.
Let me give you an example. At the first council, right? Acts chapter 15. What does verse 6 say? And when there had been much disputing.
Oh, yeah, right.
Peter arose, right? Now, who is disputing here? Apostles, Now, it doesn't say that apostles disagreed with each other, but certainly the factions from Antioch, the Judaizers and so forth, were arguing. And everybody is involved in this dispute, and it got intense. But Peter stands up and speaks, and then everybody shuts up. Now, no doubt that's telescoped, right? I mean, we don't get the whole council proceeding here.
Right.
St. Luke is famous for telescoping things down into bite-sized morsels. But this, if you go throughout the history of the church, at every single ecumenical council, there were fights. Not fisticuffs like St. Nicholas duking it out,
Right, with the Arians.
With the Arians. I hope that's true. At the Council of Nicaea, but there were wars. I mean, there were real battles, and the disagreements at times were intense over extremely important things, and not just matters of discipline, like I think what Dave is getting at here, but matters of doctrine, things that involve salvation and so forth. So this is why I say this is a healthy sign, is because each bishop has a responsibility to his people, but he also has, the Code of Canon Law says, a responsibility to the universal church. And so if a bishop has an opinion on a matter that is going before the church, he had better speak up, because he's doing a disservice if he doesn't. Because you and I may have a side here, right? But who's to say we're right as to who is on which side? So it is. That's why I say it is healthy. We should have. It's not just it's terrible they argued at the Council of Trent. No, that's a good thing, and it's the reason why the documents come out as beautiful as they do. But now, when you get to a specific, this is, and I think we all know, this is the famous letters of Bishop McElroy and Archbishop Coeur de Leon concerning the upcoming discussion concerning, Pelosi, Biden, Catholics in political life who are obviously not in full communion with the church. The issue is, should they be admitted to communion? And you know what, guys? I have to say, I am so excited that this conversation is anybody else happy about this?
Oh, I see what you, because we have not had this conversation like this.
And now is the time. Why? Because we've never had this situation before. John Kennedy was the only Catholic president we had, and there wasn't, he wasn't out there rah-rah for abortion the way Joe Biden is. And so this is the time, my friend, where it simply has to happen. There has to be this discussion. And so first, whether the motion will move forward doctrinally through the committee to the floor. So that's going to happen in June. And then in November, if it passes in June, then it goes to both barrels, and the document will be created and then voted for in November. And then, of course, it has to be approved by the Vatican. This is exciting to me. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do believe that when you have politicians in the public eye that are not just Catholic, but saying, I'm the Catholic guy. Yeah. My Catholic faith moves me to believe in abortion, right? When you have this kind of overt, it has to be dealt with. And it can't be, guys, it can't be individual bishops. Bishop Sheridan saying, you can't receive communion in my diocese. That does nothing. In fact, what it does is causes confusion. Because when you have most bishops saying okay on this one. And so now we are going to have the discussion. I happen to believe, I won't tell you what I believe will happen, but I think it's going to be a good ending, Cy Kellett.
Okay.
Now, I may be wrong, but I won't tell you the specific what I believe will happen, but I do believe that Joe Biden and Pelosi are in trouble.
I think that's pretty specific. I think that was pretty specific.
No, but
if there's something more specific, just hold on to it, because we don't want to.
No, there's nothing. I think I was kind of joking when I said. But here's the key. These represent two different ways of approach.
Sure.
That are legitimate. You do have in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 28, St. Paul, when he's talking about this very question, he says, let each man examine himself, examine his conscience. In the early centuries of the church did not have liturgy police and saying, you can't receive, you can't receive. That's not the way it worked in the early church. The model of the early church was more 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 24, where St. Paul says, we are not here to lord over your faith, but to be helpers of your joy. And I think the Bishop McElroys, who are of that opinion, have a firm foundation in the early centuries of the church. But the Coeur de Leon, who let's face it, I'm on the side of, I believe he's right. They are coming from a more developed perspective, really in the last 150 years, especially since the 1917 code. The church has moved much more in the direction of a public reception of the Eucharist says something publicly. Mm-hmm. And so if your public statements are not congruent with your public reception, that's a problem. And to me, whichever way the church goes, remember this, folks, please remember this. Whichever way the bishops decide, it's not Cy Kellett's choice, it's not my choice. I will respect whatever the church declares, but what we have to do as lay people is understand the real issue involved is not whether we're going to say, no, you can't receive communion and we're not going to permit you to receive communion. The real issue is people are not in full communion with the church.
Yeah.
Cy, that's the real issue. Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden are not in full communion with the church. They are rejecting infallible teaching of the church, and publicly so, and we need to pray for them, and we need to proclaim the truth that, guess what? That's a mortal sin. At least that is grave matter.
Right, yeah.
If you know that the church teaches infallibly abortion is wrong, it can never be permitted in any circumstance, and you go ahead and say this is okay, your soul is on the line here. You are in jeopardy of eternal damnation. Whether the bishops decide to give you communion or permit you to receive communion really has nothing to do with that.
The objective reality
The
of what's going
objective
on.
reality is we're talking about the eternal salvation of real human beings here.
Tell me if I'm wrong about this, but it seems to me that there's no bishops who are arguing abortion's not a grave moral evil. They're all in unison, standing up, saying abortion is a grave moral evil. The question is, what is our role as bishops in administering the sacraments? Which is it's a second level question. So at least we can be very grateful. It's not like there's an Arian heresy out there, where there's people saying things that are just absolutely wrong as far as the faith goes.
That's right.
They all agree on the basics.
Yeah, the bishop. But you know what? There's another point that has to be made. Either you enforce Canon 915 or get rid of it.
Or change it. Yeah, that's
get rid of it. Because
when the law is disrespected, that teaches people to disrespect the law.
Amen. And that's St. Thomas. In fact, St. Thomas talks about how in certain nations it would be imprudent to pass laws against prostitution.
Right.
Why? Because
no one would
the culture is not ready for it, and they would simply run over the law, and then you're in a state of lawlessness. And I would urge the bishops to please consider that because of the just running over of Canon 915, canon law itself has been diminished, and the respect for the law that ought to be there has been diminished. So it's time, and so. That's why, we could talk about other reasons, but these are a couple of the main reasons why I am really excited about what's happening. The world has moved the church to this place, and it is for such a time as this. But all of us, let's proclaim the gospel. No compromise.
Yep.
Help people to see that the church is Jesus in this world, and the matters that we're talking about are of the utmost importance, man. You can't kill babies in the womb.
No.
And you can't wash it. Look, you can wash your hands, Joe Biden, all you want to. The blood's not coming off.
And it's
not.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's our families, our neighbors, our fellow Catholics. There's a great deal of refusal to face the evil that's going on in our midst, or to diminish it, or to think like we can wash our hands of it, and you can't.
And we have other matters that it's time for the church to take a stand, obviously, because now we have these crazy priests in Germany who are defying Pope Francis and just saying we're going to bless homosexual.
Do you want to name names on those guys? No, don't do it. Don't do it. Does that satisfy you, David? Or
as always, Tim, an exhaustive, complete answer. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Well, thanks.
Thank you. And I want that voice too.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you for that. We will now take a break and be right back with more Open Forum. Tim Staples.
Miss a show? Make sure to catch up by downloading the podcast, available online at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
We should pray because prayer is conversation with God. And conversation is the only way to build a relationship. We need that relationship with God. We should pray and talk with God about what's on our hearts, what's on our minds, what's active in our lives, the joys we have. We should share all of these with God. Prayer is conversation, and conversation is the only way to build a relationship with God. It's the most important relationship. All of our other relationships depend on this one.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host, and probably having more fun than we should be allowed to have on a Friday. Lots of staff members visiting us here in the studio because we're actually not just allowing, we're asking. Please come and ask questions.
Thanks for your permission, Cy.
Yeah. Don't be a smart aleck. Yeah. No, you can. That's one of your best qualities. Please be a smart aleck. Andrew Hermes is going to ask a question now. You are, what do we call you? Video czar, superstar video, like you. Let me just tell everybody who's watching now on Facebook or YouTube, all those lower thirds that you see, Andrew designed those, and he's now stepped in front of the camera. Hello, Andrew.
Hello. What's up?
Not much. Thank you for wearing this.
We understand you might have a question.
I might. Okay, this is probably the ultimate question now. New York pizza or Chicago pizza?
Yes, this is probably the most
I have an
important.
answer to that. I have a good answer
There
to
is
that.
only one answer.
Yes, and that is yes. Yeah. I will take both. Thank you.
I am partial to deep dish pizza. I love it.
Now I just lost all respect for Tim Staples.
Why? Why? It's great.
It's not pizza. It's casserole. It's lasagna. It's not.
It's casserole.
It's a cake. It's not pizza.
No, I gotta say, I
like
love
both.
the Brooklyn where you can fold the pizza.
Yeah.
You know,
Right,
you can
yeah.
fold it and have it in your 3 fingers while you're yelling at the taxi driver or something.
That's the way to do it.
But I also love that Chicago pizza.
I
man.
do.
I'll eat both too. I'll admit it.
I'm partial to Chicago. I can't help it.
I'll go the other way. But
But you're more of a New York guy.
Definitely more of a New York guy.
All right.
Absolutely.
But
Thin crust.
nothing tops a Philly cheesesteak. All right. I'll
Ooh,
leave it at that.
wow. Okay. He just threw down with
And you
you.
can't
Open that
get
can
a
of worms.
Philly cheesesteak anywhere but Philly. Anywhere you try to get it, I'm sorry. Man, you go to Philadelphia where you get the cheese this thick and it's just, you can't eat it without
I'm salivating
grease
on the air.
all over your face. All right, go ahead.
Why? Why did you come in and start a conversation about food with me and Tim? That was a terrible idea.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Sorry guys. There's donuts in the room. My real question is, I think Dave's question was a good segue, where bishops could tend to be, painting with broad strokes on their, church teaching. People, as in like friends and family members, are not shy about their opinions, especially
Oh, boy.
this past year with the pandemic and the political atmosphere and all that. Everyone knows what I'm talking about, so I won't get into it. But
Right.
My question is, what's some advice on charitable ways to sort of approach, whether it's friends, family members, even interacting with people on social media, where anyone can say anything.
Yeah.
Fellow Catholics that are, even if it's not politics or about the pandemic, whether it's about, the liturgy or whatnot, or how a certain priest or bishop is acting.
Yeah.
People can be on either side of these polarizing extremes. What's just general advice on how to interact with people like that in a Christian way?
Yeah. Boy, you're looking at somebody who has failed over and over and over the years, right? And we're never going to get this thing right completely, this side of the veil. But I think, obviously, and you said the word many times, charity is everything. But charity does not mean wimpiness. And I think sometimes, let me give you an example of what I mean, bro. You think of John the Apostle, right? The apostle of love, right?
Yeah,
That's
right.
John.
That's right.
He is all about love.
He's the one that said God is love.
God is love, 1 John 4:8. You've got love everywhere in the Gospel of John. But that same Apostle John, I love the story recounted by St. Irenaeus that he heard.
Oh, but I know what story you're going to talk about. Cerinthus, right?
Yes, from Polycarp. Now, and Polycarp, of course, knew John, had, as St. Irenaeus said, had the words of John still echoing in his ears, right? When he said that one day they were in a bathhouse and Cerinthus and his people came in and John was there with his disciples, and John says, "Flee for your lives, the son of Satan has entered and the walls are going to collapse on us." Now, some argue, that's apocryphal. John would have never said that. And you know what? Without getting into I believe he did, but whether or not that's even true, I think is beside the point. The fact that you say, because John says love, he would never do that, it's proof positive you don't know what love is. Because love, my friends, I've got 7 kids, and every one of my kids know that I love them, and they know what my hand feels like on their backside, right? Because I love them before I spank them, while I spank them, and after I spank them. And in the same way, now look at John. That same apostle of love in 1 John chapter 4 says this: "This is how we know the spirit of Antichrist. Anyone who says that Jesus the Christ is not come in the flesh, the same is Antichrist." That was a message right for Cerinthus and the boys.
Yeah.
So if anything, that's stronger language than the walls are coming down on us.
Right.
Okay, now why do I bring that up? Because I think in our modern era, charity has been confused, as the old defensive tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles, remember, he used to say, don't confuse meekness for weakness, right? Because the idea of being humble, oh, just run over us. We're not going to say anything. We're humble. That's not humble. That's cowardice.
Yeah.
Right? We have to stand for truth and speak truth. Now, all of that is true. But now, Andrew asked the question, yeah, but how does that work at the dinner table on Thanksgiving with my cousin and my aunt and my grand?
Yes.
Right? How does that work there, Tim? Well, how it works is you love. You don't change in one situation to the next. You love in every situation. But there is, as Ecclesiastes 3 says, for everything there is a season. I think the Turtles, right? Saying that, didn't they?
No. It was.
Who was that? Well, whoever it was.
The Carpenters?
No, don't even say the Carpenters. So you don't know anything about music.
Way before my time.
But no, the Birds.
The Birds.
Yeah.
For everything, there's a season. And so at Thanksgiving table, it's not the time to say the walls are going to fall in or the son of Satan is here. That's a time to let's talk about the football game. Let's, let's have a drink. God bless you. I love you. It's all about wisdom, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's one thing we know in sacred scripture. This is one of many prayers that we know will be answered in the affirmative. In James chapter 1, verse 4, if any man lacks wisdom, it's verse 5. James 1, verse 5. If any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives willingly and upbraideth not. In other words, he will never say no. Please, God, give me wisdom to know when I am to say the son of Satan has entered into the room and the walls are coming down, and when to say, I love you, brother. Hey, have a beer.
Yeah, right.
Let's talk. And you know what, Andrew, we can't answer that question for you. All we can do is kind of lay out the principles and say, pray, pray, pray. Lord, just help me to love my grandmother, love my cousin. And if you are really loving, as St. Augustine says, love God and do what you will, really does work.
What do you think, Andrew?
I was hoping you would be a lot more angry.
You're never going to get that.
No, that's very well put. Thank you, Tim.
All right,
that's an awesome answer.
And you do a great job, Andrew. Thanks,
well, thank you.
Thanks
you
for
too,
coming
Si.
in. Oh,
Sometimes.
wait. Well, sometimes.
Yeah.
I heard you slip that in there. You're actually, I don't know if I'm supposed to say, maybe I'm not supposed to say anything. In like a week, you're going to do some stuff, and it's going to affect this show. Am I not supposed to say anything about it? Or
That's a nice tease.
Just say it like that. Okay.
Yeah. Just pay attention.
Andrew's working on some stuff.
Yeah,
for those who watch at home.
You'll notice. Maybe not.
No, you'll notice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so I won't say more than that because I don't want to ruin the surprise.
Gosh, cool. I'm looking forward to whatever it is now.
Oh, yeah, Tim has no idea.
No.
We're getting rid of this chair, and I'm getting a throne. It's going to be an awesome show from now on. I sit on the throne and just...
All I want that star taken off of his door. That is ridiculous.
No, that's
the star is over the top. I'm okay with only red M&Ms. I'm okay with that. But get the star off the door.
You just don't like waiting outside while my assistant says, no, I'm sorry, it's going to be a few more minutes. Mr. Kellett is very busy. Thanks, Andrew. I'm going to do an internet question now.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it. Let's do, Mark asked this, Tim. Once marijuana becomes the new norm, how, as Catholics, do we combat it to help the youth not be about getting high?
Yeah, and
it is becoming the norm.
It is, especially in California and in states that have legalized it.
Which seems like a lot.
It is.
I mean, like you go to places you don't expect it, like Oklahoma, and it's like on every corner is a dispensary in Oklahoma.
Yeah, and I think that it's the problem gets back to we need to evangelize our culture. I believe it was Pope St. John Paul the Great who said, when Jesus came to this earth, he came not only to reveal God to man, but to reveal man to man. John Paul was prophetic in that today we're living in a situation where not only does our culture not know who God is, but they really don't know what a human being is any longer. Things that we once took for granted, now, I mean, you're not going to believe this, but I'm going to refer to Johnny Carson.
I am shocked.
I never
shocked
do that.
About that.
No, I was watching Johnny Carson the other day, and they were talking about a particular person and joking about how he was effeminate and mentioned he was homosexual. And Johnny says to the guest, who then says of him, well, you're not saying this is a problem or something like that. And he said, well, yeah, we know what his problem is, right? He said that, right? His problem. Now, in today's culture, if you said that, you would be blacklisted. Johnny Carson would be off the Tonight Show. He would disappear from being. And it was banter and whatnot. But it hit me that we had a culture where it was generally understood. Men went with men and women with women. That doesn't exist any longer. It was generally understood. Doing things like getting drunk, smoking dope, and such is wrong. Now, after the break, let me put the final bow on this answer.
Very good. It's Internet Open Forum and also Staff Open Forum. Staff coming in. We'll be right back with more Tim Staples after this. Most of us Catholic parents agree our number one goal in life is to pass on the faith to our children. But here's the bad news. Today's world has a million ways to steal your kid's soul. Don't be afraid, says Father Sebastian Walsh. God loves your children even more than you do, and He desires their salvation more than anything. In his groundbreaking new book, Always a Catholic, Father Walsh shows you how to cooperate with God to bring about the fulfillment of His will for your kids. Always a Catholic reminds us that keeping our kids in the faith is about the way we live our Catholicism in our own lives and as a family from day to day. Order your copy of Always a Catholic by visiting shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. It's free, and you'll have instant access to our daily broadcast, the schedule of upcoming shows, and you'll even be able to search the archive and listen to thousands of past shows. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Have you enrolled in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics? Let me ask you a more important question. Do you believe as a Catholic that you have an obligation to share the Catholic faith? In fact, the Church has answered this question, and the answer is that all confirmed Catholics are obliged to share the faith. It's actually in canon law. Catholic Answers is here to help you fulfill that obligation. Our School of Apologetics courses will equip you to help all the people you come in contact with understand what the Church teaches and why. A great place to start is with all the Catholics in your life. Learn the art of apologetics from the best of the best and start sharing the gospel today. Visit schoolofapologetics.com. That's schoolofapologetics.com.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. I'm really enjoying a Friday where we get to talk with members of the staff, come in and ask their questions. Tim Staples is here. It's an open forum, but it's an internet open forum. But when we have Tim here, it's also nice to let the staff ask questions. And so we've got various staff members coming in. We will get to our next staff member, but I don't want to forget what we were doing, which was talking about marijuana. Our writer, not caller, wanted to know, basically, now that marijuana is going to be everywhere, how are we supposed to help kids stay away from it?
Yeah, and in my long-winded way, I was finally getting around to the point that Pope St. John Paul the Great made so beautifully and in multiple documents over the years, and that is that Jesus came not only to reveal God to man, but man to man. And I think we've lost a sense of what it means to be man. And I mean manness, mankind, right?
Yeah.
And this is what has to be proclaimed, the dignity of the human person. The reason why marijuana is wrong is it impedes, it damages, and over time I have too many friends who are permanently damaged from marijuana and other drugs. I'm thinking of a couple of them right now who can hardly carry on a conversation any longer because of that. That it basically darkens the intellect and weakens the will. That's what it does. That's what alcoholism does. That's what marijuana does. And this is why when you do things like that, you smoke marijuana, and especially today when marijuana, I'm told, is so much stronger over the decades than it was, say, 50 years ago. It's really dangerous today. And this is why when you smoke or you drink, you end up doing things that you wouldn't ordinarily do. You know, I know the old Latin saying that there's truth in vino veritas.
Oh, yeah.
I don't buy that for a second. No, in wine there is not truth. What happens in wine is you do things that you would not normally do.
Right.
And you end up regretting sometimes for the rest of your life. Why? Because it diminishes you. You're talking about chemicals that diminish you as a person. Your intellect is not able to function the way it normally would. Your will is weakened to where you act in ways that you ordinarily would not do. Why would somebody purposely put themselves in such a place? Well, there's a deeper reason, and that's where evangelism comes in. People are trying to get peace. They're trying to get happiness in ways where you just can't. All you do is end up further into the darkness, right?
Right.
So how do we do it? This is evangelism, folks. We bring Jesus to people, and we bring man to people. And Jesus is man incarnate. We have the teacher now. He's not only taught us in word, but he showed us what it means to be man.
Thanks very, very much for the question. It's another staff member here with us, and I am going to go out on a limb, and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings with this, but I'm going to see if Darren agrees. Probably the most popular staff member here at Catholic Answers. Wouldn't you say the most popular? I think that's Donna Barrick, is the director of marketing. We never, well, I shouldn't say never, but we almost never conclude a meeting without Donna telling a joke. And the joke is
really bad.
Usually really bad. Okay, it's usually a really bad joke. I didn't know.
I will not be telling a joke right now.
But a superstar marketing director has just changed life here at Catholic Answers since she came. Hi, Donna.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here.
Sure.
You're very mellow today.
I'm trying to tone it down.
Are you? I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you are.
I think Sai's the most popular on the staff.
He's
just deflecting the attention from himself.
You know that's not true.
Well, I suppose when everybody doesn't like you, you are popular.
I guess so. There's a kind of popularity to that, right? That's there's a shared popular opinion about you.
Oh gosh.
You are beloved, Donna.
Well,
Go ahead with
Sai
your question.
Kellett. So, we have a common prayer life here at Catholic Answers, and we have rosaries hanging in the library if you want to run to Divine Mercy at 3 or pray a rosary. And I grabbed one a couple years ago, and it broke, and it's been sitting on my desk ever since because I didn't know how to dispose of it. So I was just wanting to know, how do I dispose of a broken religious article? It's not an expensive rosary. It wouldn't be worth fixing.
Right.
Do you know if it's blessed?
Well, I'm assuming it is because it's in our chapel. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of schools of thought on this, Donna. There are those who would say that when something is broken, it loses its blessing.
Right.
So that would have to be repaired and then blessed again. It's kind of like if you have a consecrated altar and it gets desecrated, it's no longer blessed. It has to be reconsecrated. So some would argue it would require more than just breaking it. I am of the opinion if it's broken, you can actually throw it away because it's no longer blessed. If it's blessed, you should never throw it away. There are procedures. You either burn it if it's made of something that can burn, or you bury it respectfully. But something like that that's broken and can no longer function as to what it was made for, I argue you could throw it away. Now, the church does not have a definitive teaching on this,
okay.
right? But, the most important thing is that we treat things that are blessed as they should be. And another thing to think about is when it comes to spillage of, say, the precious blood, even after you clean it up as best you can, use water and so forth, and you break it down to the point where it's no longer wine, then our blessed Lord is no longer present, right? Because if you just have a stain, for example, and there's nothing that can be called wine left, Jesus is no longer present. But the church still is careful to respectfully discard of those things. So that's an argument on the flip side that would say,
Right.
you know what you should do is bury that anyway. Just bury it out in your yard as a, a respectful way of discarding it. So I wish I could have given you one definitive answer, but there are a couple of different schools of thought on it. I am of the opinion, like I said, if something is broken, you can throw it away.
What do you think, Donna?
So you're safe burying it?
Yes.
You don't want to throw it away, do you?
Well, I feel I just have held on to it for a long time, thinking like,
for conscience sake, bury it.
bury it. I'm going to bury it then.
Yeah.
But because it's broken, the
And it'll make
blessing
your
has
trees
left
grow
it.
better. No, I'm
Okay.
kidding.
All
I'm
right.
kidding.
All right. I'll put it out
won't.
there. Thank you, Tim.
Okay.
Thanks,
All right.
Si.
Where's the joke?
Don't have one.
No
for you.
joke today.
I have one, but it's really bad, so I'm gonna leave. I'm leaving.
Look at everybody in the studio is like, don't let her tell a
I'm
joke.
Leaving. No, I'm not telling a joke.
Well, my beloved Donna, Tim Staples, our guest. It's Open Forum this afternoon on Catholic Answers Live, and the Open Forum is entirely an internet open forum and a staff open forum. All of our questions are coming from outside in via the internet, or they're just coming directly from our staff. I'm going to give you another one from the internet.
Let's do it.
Eric wanted to know, and Christine's coming in after the break. I think Christine will be in here after break. Eric asks, after St. Peter died, what were the relative levels of authority between the subsequent popes and the remaining apostles? Oh, I see. That's a very interesting question. Yeah.
It is a great question. And this is an area, too, where the church doesn't give us any sort of definitive ruling. But what we do have is some anecdotes from history, right? In that when you look at St. Clement, who was the fourth pope, the third successor of St. Peter, he wrote a famous letter, which I have read multiple times. It is a glorious letter. His letter to the Corinthians. And it was written roughly, now some argue for an earlier 70-ish date. I argue for the roughly 90, 92 in that area. But what's important is either one of those dates, John was either before exile or after exile. So John was living in Ephesus, all right? So you had John. Think about this. The Corinthians, similar to what they did with St. Paul years before, remember, they wrote letters to Paul. And Paul, when he writes 1 Corinthians, for example, he says, now, with regard to the letter that you wrote, and this question that you wrote, the whole chapter on marriage and celibacy is a response to a question, right? Well, evidently, the Corinthians kept doing that because decades later now, roughly, depending upon when you date it, 50, 60 years later, they wrote letters to Clement. Now, what's significant here is John the Apostle was alive, and he was living in Ephesus. Whichever date he would, either before, like I said, before exile at Patmos or after. So he's there, and yet the Corinthians don't ask John, and he's right down the street in Ephesus. Compared to Rome, that's quite
I see. Yeah,
that's quite a trek.
Corinth and Ephesus are not far apart. They could have asked John.
That's right. They could have asked John easily. So what does this indicate? It indicates something that we see in sacred scripture as a distinction between Peter and the apostles. Notice in the book of Acts chapter 15, I mentioned this earlier, I think in the first hour, that when you had an issue that threatened to tear the church apart in the Judaizers, Paul and Barnabas couldn't even settle the disagreement. It was so intense. They determined to send up to, if you look at Acts 15 verses 1 through 3, they determined to send up to the apostles and elders to consider this question. What's interesting is when Peter stands up, as we mentioned before, Si, in verse 6 it says, and when there had been much disputing, right? That's a Catholic council, baby. Much disputing. Peter arose and said, men, brethren, hearken unto me. We believe. And Peter declares with the royal we, right? We believe that we shall be saved by the grace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, even as they are, meaning there's no difference between Jew and Gentile. He declared the truth concerning the Judaizers. Peter declares as one man, apart from the consensus of others, as Vatican I would define in 1870, right? And in fact, in verse 12, it says they all kept silent. after Peter declared. But then James stands up in verse 14 and 15 and following. His first words, though, after Peter had dealt with the dogmatic matter, it was settled. Peter spoke. It's over. Beautiful. Then James stands up and gives his pastoral opinion. And you'll note the stark difference. Because when James stands up, he says, the first thing he says is sumeon exegeseto in Greek. Simon has declared. And by the way, I like to note, that's the same word, exegeseto, that's used in John chapter 1, verse 18. No man has seen God at any time except the only begotten Son who dwells in the bosom of the Father has declared him. Exegeseto. So Simon has declared, right? Then from there he says, I say, and he gave a pastoral opinion as to what we do. Now that Peter has declared the dogmatic truth, how do we pastorally deal with this situation? And when he does, look at verse 22, people, in Acts 15. And then when they all agreed, they sent the epistle. Well, they wrote up an epistle there in verses, verses 24 through 28. And then they send it to the troubled churches. But here's the key. James had to get the consensus of the others. Whereas Peter declares as one man apart from the consensus of the others. So we see fulfilled what Jesus did in Matthew 16. He gave Peter a unique authority. And then in 18, he gave all the apostles a collegiate authority, a collegial authority. Well, that evidently did not stop. In fact, we know dogmatically it did not stop because we have the Pope, the successor of Peter's, and all the bishops who are the successors of the apostles. But here in the letter of Clement to the Corinthians, that seems to apply to individual apostles in relation to the successors of Peter. Because of this letter, it seems to indicate here that Clement, as a successor, has a unique authority even over John. Even though John had a power that Clement didn't. John could write scripture. Clement could not. So John has a power that he doesn't. Clement also has a power that John doesn't.
He can settle issues for local churches. He can
settle issues for local. So it's a great question. We're being somewhat speculative, but we do have good evidence for the fact that the successor of Peter even had authority over the successors of the apostles.
Open forum this hour. Tim Staples, our guest.
Not the successor, but the apostles.
But the apostles themselves, yeah. Right back with more guests. More questions from staff and some questions from the internet after this.
There's only one. Catholic Answers Live.
We have a big problem. Our culture is dying, and souls are in danger of being lost. The answer is conversion to Jesus Christ in His church. St. Paul Street Evangelization is a Catholic organization, and we have hundreds of teams spreading the good news throughout the country. But we need your help. The harvest is great, but the laborers are few. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
I told him about the woman who came to me and said her two children hadn't spoken to each other for 2 years. Their grandma died, and she was very wealthy. She left half to each one. She said they're arguing over a commode. She said it's inlaid. Can you imagine being in hell and somebody saying to you, what are you here for?
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I cannot help but rest my hands on my belly. I can't help it. Whenever I'm around assistant producer Marie, who's here to ask a question. Because you and I have about the same size belly, and you are always caressing the baby. And so then I start doing it because I see you doing it. Hello, assistant producer Marie.
Hi.
How's little Cyril doing?
He's good. I have to admit, when you remember that there's a baby in there, you're like, oh,
oh, hi, how
Yeah.
are you doing?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you just end up checking on them, seeing if they're moving.
Yeah, and then and then I'm like feeling my belly. I don't know why we're all
You're
feeling
like, how's
our belly.
that donut doing in there?
Exactly. I got to check up on him. He's kicking.
Oh, it's
but
nice to have a friend with you at all times.
Oh,
I have
that's
to
so
admit,
beautiful.
I feel
Yeah.
like I'm never by myself anymore in a nice way. It's like he's always with me. So
That's right.
Let me ask you this. Do you, when you're driving by yourself now, do you take the diamond lane? Because there's two of you? Or do you just...
Oh my gosh, no, I still take
I bet you could get
I
away with
don't
it.
take the carpool lane, but that would be funny.
You would win in court.
Yeah, I think... well, no, it's California. That's true. That's true.
I would win in court maybe after the baby was born. It's like, can we delay the trial until
until you can see the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, assistant producer Marie, I'm glad to see you. You seem like you're feeling well.
I'm feeling really
Everything-
good.
Everything's progressing well?
Yeah. I've been feeling really good for like a month and a half now, which is so nice.
Yeah, because it was hard in the beginning.
Yeah, like I'm getting such better work done here now that I'm like feeling focused.
What you mean is you're
and
getting work done.
awake again.
I'm glad to hear it.
My boss is listening right now.
Yeah, right. Oh, she's been doing great the whole time. He doesn't even care. He's eating a donut. He has no headphones on. Whatever. All right. So we can do whatever we want in here.
Absolutely.
Right now. Assistant producer Marie, do you have a question for Tim Staples?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things that I run into is with our faith is that I believe it so much and I'm so proud of it and I love it and I live my life by it. But I definitely have family and friends who, I guess on some minor levels and some major levels, I see that they're either doing something like really seriously contrary to what's good for them,
Right.
or some on minor levels, like maybe see them falling away from going to mass or falling away from the sacraments. And it's hard for me to address that. In some instances, I'm much younger, and so it just seems like inappropriate to say, what the heck are you doing? But at the same time, I know that we have some responsibility to say something if we see something wrong. So anyway, I'm wondering what our responsibility is or what the best way to handle that would be.
Yeah, great question, because we do have, and you're right, we do have an obligation. It's not an option for Catholics to evangelize, right? We have an obligation. It goes to the core of who we are. Go into all the world and proclaim the gospel. Is not just for the bishops, it's for all of us. And we have a responsibility for which we will answer to God, because as you know, Marie, we have not just the corporal works of mercy, but the spiritual works of mercy that we will be judged by. Catechism, Catholic Church, paragraph 2447 to 2449, right in that area. It's beautiful teaching on that. But two of those spiritual works of mercy are to educate the unlearned and admonish the sinners. So these are uncomfortable things. I know it's uncomfortable for me as well, but we have to grapple with that. And we need to be uneasy sometimes about that because it is a challenge. I mean, Paul himself said it in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 16. He said, "Woe be unto me if I preach not the gospel, for necessity is laid upon me." Now, of course, as a bishop, he has a special responsibility,
Right.
but so do we. Okay, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but we once we understand that, then we have to see the practicality of it. The fact that I have an obligation doesn't mean I have to be a jerk about it. There's not a single beatitude that says, "Blessed are the jerks." Am I right?
I missed that one if it's there.
That's right. It's not there. We're not called to be jerks, and Jesus is the example of the evangelist who doesn't start with the Samaritan woman at the well by saying, "Hello, Samaritan woman at the well, I'm God. How are you?" By the way, I'm the second person of the Blessed Trinity, relationally distinct from the Father and Holy Spirit, but one in essence, right? She'd be going, "Huh?" But what did he do? Give me a drink of water. Jesus is the master. That's what you do. You start with, let's have a beer. Hey, let's talk. And you elevate the conversation. That's what I try to do, is I take Jesus and say, with my relatives and whatnot, you start off talking about them. what's up with them, and then eventually it gets around to what's up with you.
Right.
And then you find it's easier to ease into the conversation after the conversation has been going. But if you allow the tension, oh man, I've got to preach, I have to say it to him. Oh man, if I don't do this, I'm going to go to hell. Okay! Then it comes out totally wrong.
Forced and...
It's forced, it's uncomfortable, and then, And also, you know, we have to think about doing it alone. Don't do it in front. Don't do it in front of the family.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Pulling someone aside and sharing a little bit. Also, you know, it's great to be sneaky about it. You know, you can bring up a topic kind of inadvertently, or maybe somebody else brings up a topic inadvertently. I mean, there's lots of ways to be creative to do it. But I'm convinced, Marie, that if our hearts are in the right place, we said this before, you know, if you really love, you know, remember the rich young man? I think it's in Mark's version, isn't it? Where the scripture says Jesus looked at him and loved him. And then he hammered him. He hammered him with a really tough thing. And the man walked away.
Yeah.
But if you're loving him, if you really are loving him and you share from your heart, if the person does walk away or get offended, it's not going to be because of you. That's the thing I fear. I say, Lord, please don't let me be the hindrance. Just let me get out of the way and let you shine through.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
easier said than done.
Yeah. So if a friend said to you, I don't make it to, I've had a few friends say this to me in the last year. Yeah, I don't make it to Mass every Sunday, but like at least Christmas and Easter. And you know they know.
Yeah.
And you know they know you're probably going every Sunday. Yeah. And I admit I somewhat recently kind of like let that opportunity go by. Like I didn't know what to say, so I just kind of stayed quiet.
Right.
And they were kind of expressing that they had been going a bit more lately, so I was encouraging of that. I was like, "Oh, I'm really excited that you found a parish near you."
Yeah.
But it's so hard because, like, I know that it's as important as food for them.
Yeah.
Or more important.
It's
but
more important.
At the same time, I don't want to sound like their mom saying, "You're not going to church."
You know, you can kind of do it lightheartedly. You know, oh man, Catholic. Every Sunday, holy days of obligation, and kind of make it lighthearted.
Yeah.
I remember, you remind me of our neighbor. Her name was Pat, wonderful lady. And one day, years ago, I got a call from my wife, harried. There's a fire. There's a fire, Tim. I got to get the kids. Click.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm like, I'm getting ready to go on the air. And we had to get Jimmy Aiken to pinch hit because I said, I'm sorry, guys, I got to go because I think my house is on fire. And I drove, I'm breaking laws. And as I'm approaching, you know, the Mission Gorge, right? Yeah. And there's my house over the other side of the hill. And I'm seeing black smoke coming up right where my house is. I am panicking. Oh my goodness. And I come, the police are there, there's fire trucks and stuff. And when I whip around the corner, come to find out, the hill behind my house was on fire.
Oh my gosh.
So at any rate, everybody was evacuated. My family was out and I'm standing out in the street. My neighbor, Pat, had been evacuated. Her house got really close to being burned.
Wow.
And so we're and I knew she was Catholic. So we're standing out there and I took a shot. You know, I said, wow, you know, it's time like these. I am really grateful to God for my Catholic faith. Again, I told her a little bit about what happened. And she says, I haven't been to Mass in quite a while. I said, this Sunday is the time. Pat, you need to go to Mass. And she was there.
Oh, beautiful.
She told me she hadn't been to Mass in like 20 years, but she can. But you know what? A lot of times it's like that. It's just, and by the way, she has since died. She was a wonderful lady. But it's just
seizing that time of like invitation when you can just extend yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
God bless you, Marie.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Assistant Producer Marie. Tim, that was a lot of fun. I'd love it when the staff comes in here and talks with you.
It can't be over.
It is. It's over, Tim.
2 hours?
Yes. You have to go home now.
All right. I'm sad.
Go home and be nice to Luke.
Yes.
Thanks very much. I really enjoyed that 2
Great
hours.
to be with.
It's just great to have you back and
Thank you,
back
brother.
to doing it. And that wraps it up for us. So, I know what I should say. Little message: Jesus Christ is the light of the nations. We'll see you next time right here, Catholic Answers Live.